This podcast is for informational purposes only. This podcast is not intended to replace professional, medical, or mental health advice. The views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host. Lastly, no guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast.
Greetings. I hope that all is well. In this episode of Who Is Me with Mr. Me, I'm going to discuss a word that I use quite often. This word is perspective. Then we will go with the flow from there. At this time in my life, my favorite musical artist in the genre of rap and hip-hop is Kendrick Lamar. He is very creative and he conveys a profound message in his music. Of course, depending on your perspective. It will determine if you can resonate with the deeper meanings of his musical performances. I mentioned Kendrick Lamar because of what he stated in The Heart Part 5, a song that he released in 2022. He stated, "As I get a little older, I realize life is perspective, that my perspective may differ from yours. I want to say thank you to everyone that's been down with me, all of my fans, all of my beautiful fans, anyone who's ever gave me a listen, all my people. I resonate with this message. Now, let's heal, learn, and grow together. Mr. Me." Let us begin. Let's define a couple of terms. According to Oxford Languages, a definition of perspective is a particular attitude toward or way of regarding something, a viewpoint. According to Merriam-Webster, the etymological meaning of the term world is defined as human existence. From my perspective, the earth and world are not synonymous. The earth is this realm, plane, or planet we currently exist on. The world is the matrix, aka governments, systems, and cultures of human beings that govern this plane of existence. I brought up the term world because money makes the world go round. That's true. And money makes me do all things that I do. This is a lyric from another one of my favorite rappers, Scarface. I often hear people say that money is the root of all evil, and I tend to disagree. Money is a medium of exchange. Money is a tool, an energy or currency that can be used for so-called good or evil, depending on your perspective. According to Oxford Languages, greed is an intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food. From my perspective, greed is the root of all evil. Greed is a sickness, or a person, place, or thing is willing to rob, murder, lie, cheat, and manipulate in order to capitalize from a person, place, or thing, when by any means necessary. Don't get me wrong, I'm neither political or religious. I am a spiritualist, and this is how I see the world. My perspective. In the next couple of episodes, I'm going to discuss my life as a workaholic. Prior to the release of these stories, I wanted to lay a foundation and shed some light as to how I became a workaholic. I have been taking my time with this topic of discussion. I still work a full-time job, and it takes a lot of energy to produce a podcast, especially when you do it by yourself. Soon, I see myself as financially free with the ability to do whatever I want, whenever I want. Complete and total freedom is what I am manifesting. According to Wikipedia, a workaholic is a person who works compulsively. A workaholic experiences an inability to limit the amount of time they spend on work despite negative consequences, such as damage to their relationships and health. Hell, I should start a nonprofit organization entitled Workaholics, or WA for short. And every time we meet and greet each other, we're going to have a saying. And that saying is going to be, "Wow." Now, that's just a little levity for a serious subject. Depending on the individual, the stresses of work may lead to alcohol abuse, drug abuse, domestic violence, and mental illnesses, etc. This is why it is so important to know thyself. what you can and cannot handle when it comes to just about anything in your life. It is important to learn how to set up boundaries, learn how to say no, and quit being a people pleaser. According to Google, a people pleaser is a person who prioritizes the needs and desires of others over their own, often at the expense of their well-being, henceforth, a workaholic. In my opinion, there's a thin line between a good employee and a workaholic. I've always been a team player, and I can work with just about anyone. My goal is to mind my own business, perform my tasks, get this money, and go home. I'm not a brown-nosing ass kisser, but I did have a hard time saying no. I would feel guilty every time I said no. And this is just not for work, this is just life in general. Ralph, could you do this? Ralph, could you do that? Even when I felt that I should not do it, I did it anyway. I've learned that no is a complete sentence, and I do not have to explain myself to anyone. I'm not saying be a dickhead, but there's nothing wrong with saying no and prioritizing yourself. I became a workaholic because of fear. Fuck fear, by the way. Fear of poverty and ridicule. At the time, I cared about what others thought of me. Today, the judgment of others doesn't bother me. I can care less. I allow my character to speak for me. And while I'm on the subject of fear, I have a few thoughts on fear that I would like to express. Fear is the mind killer. This is a quote from one of my favorite movies, the 2021 version of Dune. Fear is a spirit killer. It makes the soul dormant. The fear is used to control the minds of the masses. Learn how to transmute fear by facing your fears. And remember that danger is real. So use your discernment, aka don't be a dumbass when you decide to face your fears. Lastly, hate is a symptom of fear. Let's move on. I did not grow up impoverished. We were not rich by any means. My parents were very hardworking. My mother was a nurse, and my father was a veteran and an oil processing technician for one of the major oil companies. Physically, I did not lack for anything. I was not one to tease and bully other children who were less fortunate than I, because of my experience of being bullied in kindergarten. I never ridiculed the less fortunate because I knew that one day I could be in their shoes. I am grateful for everything. I experienced my first taste of poverty in the summer of 2000. I was a struggling college student, and I resided in Simsboro, Louisiana, which is a rural village 5 miles west of Grambling State University, where everybody is somebody. At the time, I was a pizza delivery driver, and my vehicle was in disrepair. I made about $5.15 an hour, plus tips. Eventually, my car broke down, and I did not have enough to pay for repairs, and I ended up leaving the job. My rent was $247 a month. Fortunately, my father helped to cover that and my car insurance. I did not like to ask for help. I'd rather suffer in silence and resolve my issues on my own. Could this be a toxic trait of mine? Could be, but I have my reasons. I understand that this is something that I must work on. If I do ask for help, it is because I am desperate. During the summer of 2000, I was in a tough situation. I learned to live without running water and electricity. I would take water from the laundry room to wash up and to flush my toilet. If I did not have any water readily available, I would place a plastic bag in the toilet, handle my business, and rush it to the dumpster. Louisiana summers are extremely hot and humid. I lived on the second floor, so my windows stayed open. I lived alone, so at night, I was naked. I survived on pecans and top ramen. My father sent me a large box of pecans, and when I did have electricity, ramen noodles became a delicacy. Man, ramen noodles as a delicacy. I lost a lot of weight that summer. My brother Robert spent the summer in Minnesota with the mother of his children and her family. And upon his return, he noticed that I had slimmed down. He mentioned that I looked malnourished. I was, but in my opinion, this was an invaluable experience. I survived. I learned to appreciate the bare necessities that many people take for granted. Imagine how the homeless may feel. I have a lot of compassion for the homeless because I've been homeless on 2 occasions. Fortunately, I never lived on the streets. I experienced what is referred to as hidden homelessness. According to Google, hidden homelessness refers to the people who experience homelessness in ways that aren't always obvious, such as couch surfing or living in temporary housing. They lack access to safe and secure housing on their own and often have no guarantee of long-term accommodation. Because they don't use shelters or other homeless services, they are not counted in standard statistics. Or, here's a little levity, you could become a hobosexual. A hobosexual is one who uses their sexual energy to secure a place to stay. Now, we will explore more on this subject in part 2. Thank you for listening. It is greatly appreciated. Peace, love, bliss, and abundance. Mr. Me.